today I will tell you about monsters that terrified the population of entire cities and became legends, and this in our time, when one drop of saliva on a cigarette is enough to expose the criminal. And yet, let's think about why serial killers are so difficult to find. Remember any movie, the investigation always needs a motive, the means by which the crime was committed, and the opportunity. And what motive does a maniac have if he himself does not know who he will attack? There is no motive. It is as if it does not exist. Or further, if the criminal does not use any weapons or poison, but, for example, strangles women with his hands, then this does not give the investigation any leads. The means also does not expose a specific person. And then almost any man has the opportunity to deal with a woman in an empty alley. Here you have all three factors, and as a result, anyone can be a killer. After all, there are no selfish motives, no jealousy, no thirst for revenge. Or rather, the thirst for revenge can exist, but distorted, transferred from one person to a completely innocent victim. And now look, here is the story of the Vitebsk monster. The Vitebsk Strangler Mikhasevich Gennady was born in 1947, committed more than 40 murders, was shot in 1987. For all his crimes, if 14 people were arrested and convicted, one was sentenced to death. The sentence was carried out, the second went blind in prison. A very short story about Mikhasevich himself. How did a simple guy become a maniac? After all, it would seem, a nice athletic guy. An ordinary biography: school, army, service in the navy, work in his native country, where there are friends and relatives. What did he lack? Maybe sex. Probably everyone has heard the joke that there is no sex in the Soviet Union. On Posner's talk show, this was said in the heat of an argument about two systems, capitalist and socialist. The woman who said this meant that in the country of the Soviets there was no business in sex, pornography in particular, and it was true. Sex remained a forbidden niche for a very long time. I will give a paradoxical example. Already in 1982, in the country of the first cosmonauts, heroes of the 1980 Olympics, in the Baltic capital of Riga, a book was printed with drawings of various positions of sexual intimacy. It was a very decent book. But in a country that considered sex a forbidden fruit, after calls from the capital, the director of the party printing house and the chief engineer quickly destroyed the print run. The book went under the knife. Yes, and experts admit that unquenched passion finds an outlet in the most perverted forms. Here is an example for you of the Italian thinker Tommaso Campanella, describing his ideal city of the future. Already in the distant 16th century thought about the question of what to do with prematurely mature youths, so that there would be no troubles in his city of the sun. Yes, he thought about it, he understood that such a problem existed. Why didn't anyone think about it in Moscow or Belarus? But look, Mikhasevich was born 2 years after the end of the Great Patriotic War, and where Belarus had lost almost a third of its population, and there weren't enough men, and even the disabled were in great demand. The main problem in the country was poverty and devastation. It was necessary to build factories and feed the people. No one thought about sex education, about some mental difficulties, and there was no time for that. And yes, Stalin abolished food stamps before the British. The country coped, rose up. But Mikhasevich didn't cope. He is a vivid example of mental distortion. Just before his first murder, the guy was going to commit suicide because of a dramatic breakup with his girlfriend. And he was walking towards a poplar tree by the road, and suddenly he met a lonely girl. At the moment of terrible experience, for some reason he thought, "But why should I hang myself because of a woman? I'd rather strangle the same bitch myself." And he raped and strangled his first victim. Here it is, the wall of taboo, the wall of prohibition, it collapsed. And the murder brought him pleasure. As those in the know say, the most insatiable passion is the hunt for a man. He became such a hunter. In parentheses, we note that Dexter became a rapist and serial killer because he spent the night in a pool of blood, in the container where his mother was torn to pieces. And our Mikhasevich has been accustomed to violence in the family since childhood. His father, like many alcoholics, and often beat his mother, and this is a more significant reason for changes in the psyche than a night in blood. Yes, having committed the crime, Mikhasevich expected that he would soon be found, and then goodbye life, hello zone. But he was not found. The system, this entire carefully constructed system, in which every bureaucrat tried to curry favor, think about it, not to do real things, but to give a nice report, led to the courts putting anyone in jail just to tick the box. The case is solved. In addition, let us recall the ideological attitude. In the Soviet Union, there is no basis for terrible crimes, and there can be no maniacs. These are all relics of a capitalist society. So an honest investigator who hinted that a maniac had appeared immediately fell under the pressure of party organs. He could be removed, the case handed over to someone else, and this happened more than once, and not only with Mikhasevich. After all, we are not some kind of evil empire, they have maniacs there, but for us, a person is a friend, comrade and brother to another. He did not even remember how many women Mikhasevich raped. Many hid the fact that they were raped, and not all of the murdered were found in the end. But there is one point, one secret that the journalists of crime chronicles do not write about. Mikhasevich served in the Navy. At that time, the term of service in the Navy was 3 years, and not 2, as in all other branches of the armed forces. And one of the characteristic features of naval service is special discipline and special relationships between recruits and old-timers' grandfathers. Yes, and this is the school of life that all the guys went through, having exchanged their blue school suits for military uniforms. And Mikhasevich, like many others, was beaten. Doctors wrote him off, allegedly with hepatitis. But at home he strangely recovered, although for some reason later he complained of headaches. Doesn't that mean anything to you? No. Now about how he was caught. Look, this man combined 2 characters. One was a model citizen, the leader of a party cell, a good specialist, a family man, and absolutely teetotal. And the second was a womanizer, a maniac, and a robber. Yes, he robbed many, taking money, took rings from corpses. And they couldn't figure him out until he started writing notes and leaving them, stuffing them into the mouths of corpses. It's hard to understand why. In these notes, he cursed the investigation, party officials, and the entire system. In the end, he was figured out by his handwriting, by graphologists. Agree this is nonsense. He exposed himself, and he was unusual, a real monster. Now let's remember Andrei Chikatilo. This man was a quiet, talkative teacher, also a party member, and killed more than 50 people during his crime spree, although there may have been 65. He started killing in 1978 and was arrested only in 1990, a man of the most ordinary appearance. And a physically weak, a bespectacled man with thick lenses, an ordinary family man, and suddenly a monster. But here too we are faced with a terrifying mystery. This maniac managed to get away with it 4 times. Yes, he was detained 4 times, but he was always released. And how many strangers our valiant detectives managed to catch is not worth telling. I will only note that 2 people died as a result of criminal actions by the investigation. One was convicted for the first murder of Andrei Chikatilo, because he, Kravchenko, already had an article. And former prisoners are always a target. The guy was taken and immediately decided that he was the killer. He fit the scheme perfectly, although Chikatilo was already in the investigators' field of vision. But it was easier for the police to beat testimony out of Kravchenko's relatives, eliminating his alibi, and then to collect evidence on the half-blind teacher. The result, the convicted Kravchenko was shot. Murat II, the father of one of the murdered boys, he was also detained by the police, and of course, they chose the easiest way to accuse the father of the death of his son. They beat testimony out of him, and as a result, the man committed suicide in the cell. There were other fathers who attempted suicide, and no one was held accountable for this. What can we say about the other fake criminals that the detectives found? For example, Chikatilo killed a girl with Down syndrome. So what? The fact that her acquaintances from a special boarding school for the mentally retarded were immediately included among the suspects. And there were 5 such acquaintances, and the investigation pinned, pay attention, 14 corpses on them. Excellent work, isn't it? This is how the Durikov case arose. It should be explained here that this was in 1984. Recently, after Brezhnev's death, a new general secretary appeared in the Kremlin, Andropov, the former head of the KGB, and he took the police seriously. Well, up to 100,000 employees were fired from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. For what? A telling example, a KGB officer with a solid leather briefcase became a victim of police working in the capital's metro. After all, a briefcase is an opportunity to pocket something valuable, and the body, well, and they dumped it in an underground canal, and that's it. This crime showed Andropov that terrible processes were happening in the country, and he began to clean out the Augean stables, firing people from the police for the slightest reason. Hence the zeal of the employees, hence the manipulation of facts, the desire to stay in the chair at any cost. But let's get back to Chikatilo. Why was he released 4 times after being checked for involvement in brutal murders? because someone made a serious mistake, incorrectly determining the blood type as the fourth from the dried up mummified corpse, and this fatal mistake saved our killer. Or he was detained, having a photo fit, and released, detained and released. But the most amazing and inexplicable fact is the forensic examination data after Chikatilo's exposure, according to which the killer's blood type is the second, and the blood type of his secretions, seminal fluid, is precisely the fourth. Although this is impossible, there are no such people in nature. It's some kind of miracle. And now the main thing, how did a simple teacher become a monster? Here are a few facts. First, in the Chikatilo case, there is one line that many ignore. There is information that Andrei Chikatilo was raped in the army. Yes, he served. I did not have time to finish the institute, was taken away in the third year, and in the army, a smart and rational guy, and almost a certified specialist, he was overtaken by hazing. Here is your first warning sign, and fact number 2. As one of Chikatilo's cellmates told, one day the old man let it slip about his first murder, which was never included in the monster's case, after all. There are many of them. He chatted that he killed 65 people, and not just those who were included in the protocols. It turns out that Chikatilo at first suffered from his unquenchable passion and went to the forest belt to spy on the sexual pleasures of teenagers. Well, one day the guy, who climbed under his girlfriend's blouse and passionately kissed her breasts, noticed a man spying on them. He immediately chased after Chikatilo and, having caught up with him in the bushes, hit him twice in the chest under the solar plexus. Andrei Chikatilo fell and choked for a long time, sucking in bitter wormwood along with the dust that was near his face. He remembered this for the rest of his life. Having risen, he shouted something at the guy's back, cursing him. He returned to add a couple of slaps to the pervert, but ran into a penknife. They grappled, fell, and tossed and turned in the dust for a long time. That's when he killed for the first time, and raped for the first time. The girl didn't even think of leaving. She sat under a spreading tree, in the same crumpled t-shirt with her bra down, waiting for the date to continue. When the disheveled, a blood-stained stranger ran out to her with a knife, she froze, speechless. He raped her silently, and the strangest thing is, he didn't kill her. After discharging, he felt weak, his legs began to tremble, and she immediately ran through the bushes, so that only the branches crunched. Why didn't she report it? No one ever found out about this rape. No one. But after fighting with the troublemaker, he suffered, was scratched, left his blood on the corpse, having cut himself with a knife. And he didn't hide the body. He got scared and left, fearing that now this slut would bring the police. But no, the murder was written off as a showdown with peers. Everything worked out. You will say, where is the mysticism in this, and where is the magic here? What secrets? But pay attention, I am citing facts about only 2 maniacs. And in each case there are completely inexplicable mysteries. Mikhasevich was above all suspicion as a member of the Communist Party and the head of the organization of his enterprise. Why? Well, for what the hell did he start shoving notes into the mouths of his victims? And handwritten ones at that. He disguised himself for 14 years and suddenly decided to reveal himself, to play roulette with fate and Chikatilo. This doesn't fit into any framework, blood type 2, excretion type 4th. You can't help but wonder, maybe the devil really helps his faithful servants. And the worst thing, the whole horror of what was happening was that people, or ordinary people whom these monsters killed, could not find the truth. The authorities imprisoned anyone, but not real criminals, and new victims again appeared in forest belts and ravines. And there was nowhere to complain, no one to write to, because law enforcement officers were covered up and supported by bureaucrats from the party apparatus who needed beautiful statistics. Like, everything is fine in the first country of victorious socialism. Fine. And then there is a monster, a maniac. Women and boys were killed. Report to the top and that's it. Goodbye career. These are the real monsters. Servants of the people, or at the helm of the country. Well, Chikatilo himself, perhaps, would not have become a killer if the guy had not beaten him up. It's a trigger? Say now, what's the point of guessing? Too many questions remain unanswered. After all, it was the time of the death of a great country, in 1991 Yeltsin, to whom Chikatilo wrote requests for clemency. It was still an idol of the people, speaking out against the party bureaucrats. Who could have guessed that this simple guy, with a severed finger, would become the head of a mafia family that still sucks the blood of the people? But Alas, no one makes videos about these serial monsters. Maybe because someone who kills a dozen people is a terrible monster. But a killer of millions is just a politician. Discover phenomenal individuals and incredible yet real events on this channel.